Okay, so good afternoon to everyone, wherever you're joining us from, whether you're watching us live or on record on YouTube. And welcome to the Scottish Entrepreneurship Network. A Keynote event. This event is to celebrate Black History Month and Black Entrepreneurship Day coming up on November 24th. Today gives me a great pleasure to warmly welcome Barrington Reeves, founder and creative director of the Glaswegian branding agency to Gallus, but also a founder of the Black Scottish Fund. So without any further ado, why don't you introduce yourself, Barrington?
Hey there guys, thanks so much. As you said, I'm Barrington Reeves. I am the founder and creative director of To Gallus. We're a Glasgow-based creative agency, working with brands all around the world on kind of full-scale creative work, everything from naming, branding, creative strategy, marketing, campaigns, right through to production. We work with a lot of local clients, and then we work with multinationals and worldwide companies like Nike, Red Bull, Smurfit Kappa. So a real kind of diverse range of clients in there doing a lot of different work. And as you said,
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, your clients, like you said on your list, like on your website, you've got like Nike and Red Bull involved, and you have like a whole bunch of other like startups that you get involved with. So yeah, it's really interesting. Like your brand is just like diverse.
we like to kind of work with anyone that wants to make something great. Basically, we don't have a niche. We don't have types of clients that we work with. As long as someone wants to do something creative and they want to do great work, we're happy to work with them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so I just want to know, like, how did you get involved with, sorry, just tell us about your journey. How did you get involved, like, after graduating, when you got involved with entrepreneurship?
Long journey, I guess. It starts all the way back. So I studied graphic design for 2 years at college, and then I actually when I moved into university, I studied game art and design. I also always wanted to be like a more traditional artist, but as I kind of got into the game art side of things, it wasn't really a culture that I enjoyed being part of. Just felt like the kind of workplace culture of it and the people I was spending my time with weren't really the type of people that I could see myself spending the rest of my life with, essentially. I was working in kind of bars and clubs at the time. I was a PR manager and like a shift manager for one of like the biggest club nights in Glasgow that was at the Arches. So I was always really involved in club culture, and having that kind of arts background, I always kind of found myself just like designing posters for people, designing little bits of artwork, designing logos for DJs. So after uni, I just kind of slipped back into graphic design quite naturally. I had such a big network from being a PR and like spending every night up at halls and talking to people. Like I just knew thousands of people before Facebook and Instagram were like huge. It was all about your kind of personal network. So yeah, I could leverage that really well. I was getting like just lots of organic work fed in. So straight after kind of graduating, I went to work in a really small graphic design agency, just like trying to get back on the ropes, like traditional graphic design, started to learn a bit about web design and UI. Obviously I was like straight out of uni at this point, so my skills were a little bit dusty. It's kind of developed there for a year, and then I moved to be a digital designer at Equator, like the biggest marketing agency in Scotland. It's lots of corporate work. But I got to do some really fun things when I was there, and I progressed quite quickly to become the head of digital for Tesco Bank and SSE. So I was kind of taking care of all their kind of like online advertising and online marketing, which at 21 was quite overwhelming. But yeah, it was a great learning experience. So I stayed there for about a year. And then that's when things started kind of not to decline, but I had really, really awful health issues. So I actually suffered from Crohn's disease, and I went freelance as a kind of way of managing my Crohn's disease, because it was really difficult for me to spend time in a studio or to put in normal working hours. I was really fatigued. I was constantly like on medication or having to go to the hospital or having to take breaks from work. So yeah, decided to just go freelance and give my head a bit of a break and take some of the pressure off. So I guess from there, that's actually how long I've been a freelancer for. I've not actually been employed by anyone else since I was 21.
Okay. And is that when you started your company, to Gallus? That's when you started your own agency, or?
Well, I don't know if I would say that's when I started the agency, but that's definitely when I became a freelancer. So Two Gallus has been like a constantly evolving entity.
Okay.
I started it like way back when I was in uni, just doing like t-shirts. And I guess it's like a self-identity thing. It's always kind of evolved and changed with me. Like it is, although it's the agency, it is still me. If someone said who's Two Gallus, I would say that's me. So I'd say the agency kind of grew organically out of that. So over the last few years, I think about 3 years ago now, I had surgery for my Crohn's disease, and that totally cleared me up, like absolutely changed my life. So after that, it was kind of hit the ground running, and that's when we started like a kind of bigger growth strategy. And then in the last 2 years, that's been pretty rapid.
Really
That's
taken off.
yeah, absolutely. But I mean, I've always been really lucky to have like great opportunities all the way through my career. I mean, I think I first started working with Red Bull about 4 years ago. Started really small, like I made them a Snapchat filter for Red Bull Culture Clash in Bristol, like the week it launched. And they just loved it so much. And I got chatting to them. I'm always just such a big risk taker, and I really believe in just like you have to seize every opportunity you have to knock on every door that's there for you. Like you have to take every opportunity you can. So just following up with things like that, started with that tiny contract, managed to move from the Bristol one to the Manchester one. And I think they were having like a bit of trouble with some of their creative work. And I was like, right, okay, that's my time to step in again. Okay, what else can I assist with? And then that kind of turned into like managing like quite a lot of art direction for Culture Clash in London, which was like 25,000 people, like in the O2, it's like Skepta, WizKid, Popcan, all of BBK, like all of the UK garage artists. Yeah, so it went from like just being like doing a Snapchat filter to doing like art direction for this massive, like almost festival size event. And it's all just because I feel like I've always just been the type of person that if I see an opportunity, I'm always the one to be like, oh, how could we get involved in that? Could we do this? Like,
yeah, I guess you spoke about your Crohn's and how that's impacted, but I guess because it's Black entrepreneurship and it's celebrating that, like what sort of barriers has that introduced for you? Because entrepreneurship tends to be a very white dominated industry.
Oh, absolutely. It's a difficult one. I wouldn't say I've ever been discriminated against necessarily, or not in an incredibly harsh way. I do think it does provide a bit of a barrier when we're looking to work with some older, more traditional clients, especially in spaces like whiskey, more traditional business. I definitely think there's perceptions that are kind of put on us and stereotypes that like, oh, we're maybe only capable of doing like fashion work or music work, or people always assume that we're in certain industries when in reality we do amazing corporate work. God, we actually do really good corporate work. We're just finishing off like a few kind of more corporate clients right now. We do some really nice stuff like whiskey and kind of traditional drinks brands. So I think like kind of from that side of things, we're always kind of battling against like what people perceive like a Black designer to be or a Black entrepreneur to be, because they seem to have this kind of box put out for you, and like you should fit into that box. Whereas the reality is not.
I've heard you speak a little about it. I saw online that you spoke to the BBC when the Black Lives Matter movement came to Glasgow, and you said you work twice as hard because you don't come from the same background as the majority for the same recognition. Like how has that affected you? Like it seems like you've got an incredible work ethic as it is, but
yeah, I think it's just motivated me more than anything. I definitely think that there aren't the same amount of seats at the table, and I think we see that across the board in a lot of creative. We like to think the creative industries is the most forward thinking, the most liberal, but in reality, it's still got a lot of work to do. You can see it just in photo shoots, creative teams, model agencies. It's still very much like, okay, we've got a Black person on the team now. That's cool.
Yeah.
And it's not thought of as like, okay, we need 3 great designers, or they could all be Black. It's like, okay, we'll get 2 white designers because they'll be great, and we'll get a Black designer because we need a black designer.
For diversity reasons, yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
that is a problem that is actually still plaguing the industry, I think, and we see it more now that we're moving into doing a lot of productions for people, like kind of organising photo shoots, video shoots, organising creative teams. Diversity is still seen sometimes as a checkbox, and I think that's something we really need to move past. It's something it's always just motivated me though. I'm always one type of person to not let it be something that stands in my way. If I need to work twice as hard to be recognised, I will work twice as hard, and I do, I guess. So
yeah, I mean, I don't know how then you feel about a lot of these big companies now. They're making the commitments to like 4 or 5 year plans to get people of like ethnic backgrounds or minority ethnic backgrounds to get into managerial roles. I think it was Adidas that said they now will have 30% new roles filled by Black and other ethnic minorities. Do you kind of feel like that's very face value and it's very short thinking and not really fixing a root problem somewhere along the line? Or do you think
no, I think these things kind of in some way have to be fixed from the bottom up.
yeah,
I think it's very, very hard for a company with no upper management diversity to have diversity at its core. So I think those kind of building blocks, for me, they're the kind of essential next steps. I think it's worse when we see companies like Disney, Walmart come out and say, "Oh, we've got such a tie to diversity. We really like it's something that's really important to us. It's something that's close to our heart." But then you do look at their upper management, their board of directors, and there's not a single person on there. There's lots of color, or there's no women, and you're like, well, you're not really. You're committed to making the money from those communities, but not committed to putting them in power in your
we've
companies.
talked before, like in our Pride event series, and it's like all the whole idea of like pink marketing, like especially in Pride Month, where every business will fly a Pride flag or do a Pride logo, but
what are they really doing
to it afterwards? And then it's like that whole controversial issue of like, what do you have to do to fly like the Pride flag or have that Pride logo? But I guess I just haven't really seen that so much when it comes to like, doesn't really seem to be much of like Black marketing, like it is for the LGBT community, and it's same with greenwashing as well.
Like, I don't think it's so much as like it's one particular thing, but I think something that I've been focusing on a lot recently and why it's so important for companies to have a lot of ethnic diversity in their company, and particularly in their upper management, is that a lot of what these companies do is commodifying like Black and ethnic culture. So if you look at a lot of sports brands, especially Nike, Adidas, look at a lot of fashion brands like ASOS, like you really see how much they're profiting from our culture. Like if 50 or 60% of what they put out is led by Black and urban or ethnic minority culture, I think that needs to be representative within their business. And that's when I kind of get that argument quite a lot of Black people only make up 4% of the population, so surely they should only be 4% of a company, which I actually think is reasonably fair in the grand scheme of things, if that company is not exploiting that culture and commodifying it and selling it and using it to make money, which unfortunately in a lot of kind of pop culture businesses that is the case. And I think that's why it needs to be examined a little more closely in those kind of instances.
Those sort of incidences. Yeah, I think it's really challenging. I think it's hard to point out what needs to be done and like what threshold needs to be reached. Like even when Adidas says 30% of new roles will be filled with BAME or like ethnic minorities, like is that really enough? And I think that's a whole other problem of like what the threshold should even be for reaching that. But then I guess I kind of also want to talk about a little bit about your Black Scottish funds that you started. Just tell us all about it, really.
So I started it kind of just after the whole BLM movement was kind of gaining critical mass. I just wanted something that I could do, like personally. Everyone was trying to do something at that point, and it all felt like a lot of posting and a lot of awareness and a lot of education, but not a lot of action and not a lot of things that would be measurable. I'm a massive believer, and you can't just talk about change, you have to be part of it, and you have to create results that are measurable. It's all very well to say, okay, we all went to a protest and we all spoke about these things and we all shared nice black squares, and for a couple of months everyone was kind of in the know about Black history and Black trauma. But what is the actual lasting result of that?
Yeah.
Obviously with kind of business and entrepreneurism just being at the forefront of my mind every day, setting up something to do with that was just what was most natural and most authentic to me. I just thought that's where I would be able to make a good impact, and it's something that I've found that I would have benefited from when I was growing up, especially moving into the entrepreneurial space, because it can be quite alienating. Like you were saying, it is quite whitewashed and everyone looks a certain way and talks a certain way, and if dad isn't a member of the golf club and you don't have connections, I just felt there was such huge barriers there that needed to be overcome, and it's something that with my network I could have accelerated quite quickly.
Yeah.
So I set up the fund. Initially I just wanted to help like 4 or 5 businesses. There were a few people that I knew that I just thought these guys would benefit so much from just a little bit of guidance, a little bit of help, a little bit of I guess financial help as well. Most Black people in Scotland are first generation immigrants, so they generally don't have a lot of wealth, to be honest. It's not like other minority communities, the Pakistani, South Asian, Chinese communities are all, some of them 4, 5, 6 generations deep now, and that's time to build up generational wealth, time to build up strength in communities. That's not something that the Black community really has at the moment, so they haven't found that generational wealth. They don't have generational networks, so it's not just a case of not having money, but when you look at these other kind of communities and even the non-minority community, it's very likely that they have access to people that young Black kids don't. Like their mum or dad maybe knows an accountant or knows a lawyer or knows someone that they can go and speak to if they're starting a business. Whereas most of the Black community are first generation, they've just moved over there. The parents are only finding them their feet themselves. So it'd be very daunting for children of those people to try and start an entrepreneurial business. Because as you'll know, a lot of it is about who you know, what connections you have, and what doors can be opened for you to make the whole process easier. Everything's a lot easier if dad knows someone that needs a website, and you can do his for 20k and that'll start you off on your journey, and I know a lot of people like that. So yeah, I think I was
contributors to the fund. Like what were the contributors? Were they other Black Scottish entrepreneurs, or was it kind of a mix?
No, they were mainly white people who were really involved in the movement and who wanted to make a difference, I think. So yes, I originally only wanted to raise £5,000. It just grew and grew and grew. So we've now raised £25,000. So it's kind of sitting around there. Probably going to cap it for there just now because we're about to start the first round. We've just started the first round of applications, so we'll hopefully in about 2 or 3 weeks we'll distribute all of that. So the whole plan is to not just give people like a financial benefit, but to open up a network. I think like my network was probably the most valuable thing to me through my whole kind of entrepreneurial journey. The people that I met when I was working in clubs back when I was 18, 19, they were all at Strathclyde studying business, or they were all becoming doctors and lawyers, and that network's grown with me now, and now some of them own successful businesses and I've worked for their businesses, or they've passed me on to businesses that we work with, or they've given me financial and legal advice. So yeah, just trying to think of a way that we could pull all the community together, so all the beneficiaries and everyone that applies, they won't just get financial help, but they'll also be offered entry into the Black Scottish Business Network. We've teamed up with an amazing lawyers firm called CMS. They're like one of the top 10 global law firms. They've been amazing. They've offered us just so much help and they've been so supportive. So they're giving us kind of free legal advice, free legal workshops, kind of entry level stuff like how not to get screwed over on like a property rental. Like just because people say that all property rentals, when it's commercial, have to be a 10-year lease, they don't really. Like just getting your books and finances sorted out, because again, a lot of these kind of first generation immigrants are still coming to terms with how banking and finance works here, never mind for a young entrepreneurial business. So working with a financial company to help kind of do a bit of consulting there, and then we're matching everyone with a kind of peer mentor within their industry. And that's not anything intense. It's not like super intense coaching, and they're not becoming part of their business, but it's just someone to be a sounding board of, and hopefully someone they can create a kind of long lasting relationship with. So as they kind of grow and develop, and maybe they do come up with a question every couple of months, or like, I've ran into this problem with a contract. How would you approach that?
It's very important. I think you hit the nail on the head completely. Like, doing medicine is the one thing which I've learned, is that when you fix a problem, you want to take a holistic approach to everything. And it seems like you've really thought it through as the fund. And I guess I also kind of wanted to gauge what sort of other like funds or groups that support like Black, Scottish, or Black, even British entrepreneurs are there? Is there a lot of help out there? Or
no, there's none.
Changing?
In Scotland, there's absolutely none. There's groups if you're like a kid and you want to like go to a support network and learn how to like dance or DJ. You know what I mean? But I think they're great, but they are very much like for children. There isn't. I don't think there's a particularly good or useful group within Scotland that's based around entrepreneurship and the Black community. And that was a massive gap that I seen. I think down in London, where things are a little bit more embedded and you are getting second and third generation groups, there's more things there that are far more embedded and ingrained community down there, and they have started to build these networks. But I feel like London kind of lives in its own bubble. They're not really receptive to things coming down from Scotland, and I think our cultures are very different as well. And I mean, we deal with very different types of money. Like a Scottish startup and a London startup are not in the same realms of money and financial investment usually. So I think something that's based here and is a bit more natural and organic for here is going to be a bit more welcoming and hopefully a little less intimidating for people to get involved in. But over Black History Month, over the kind of BLM period, a few funds did pop up kind of similar to us. So there was the Metallic Fund. I think that raised about £1 million or something, but that was by a huge company. It was backed by like Skepta and JME. So that was amazing. But yeah, other than that, there isn't a lot of support out there. I think creative and business funding is actually incredibly hard to attain in Scotland, regardless of your race. It's not an easy thing, and it's not often put up there, and I don't think it's very well signposted. So I wanted something that was easily attainable, like that we want to get this money to people, we want to give it away, we want to empower people and have them kind of start in their business journey. So we wanted this to just be as visible as possible and as easy to attain as it could be.
Yeah, I guess also because you work in the artistic industry, but you also you have like this really unique mindset because you work in both the artistic industry and the business industry. It's like a unique overlap. I just read your mission statement. I found it very interesting. You said you use a strategic approach to create innovative, disruptive, challenging brands. Like, do you see that as like the fund is about like disrupting like the current conditions and about like empowering the people? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I think it is. It's about creating like a disrupting, an innovative type of fund. I think funds in Scotland are generally quite archaic. I'm not sure how much you've seen about trying to get funding in Scotland. A Creative Scotland fund application is about 100 pages long. And then you have to list everything. What do you want to do with the money? Where is it going to go? How are you going to spend it? What impact will that have? How many people will you be able to employ? How long will it last? You need to list everything, and then you're absolutely not allowed to deviate from that at all. So if a supplier dropped out, you would have to redo the whole application again and have it all reassessed. It takes months. And I think things like that are for a young first generation immigrant Black kid who's probably already quite nervous about starting their business journey. I think something like that is just far too difficult for them to get on board with. So yeah, we wanted to shake it off and do something that was very easy. And I hope people like Creative Scotland or Scottish Enterprise do take note of what we're doing, because this isn't a gap that I want to or should have to be filling. This should be provided by our government. Like, this is what the government exists to do. It's what Creative Scotland exists to do. There are bodies that are set up to do this. I think the fact that I have to do it is a bit of an injustice. But like I said, I'm the kind of person that just believes if you want to get something done, you just have to do it. So yeah, I just took that chance to get it
I mean,
done.
you say the 100 pages long application, you can imagine if you have that connection of someone who's done the process before. Like,
that's it. Oh yeah, Aunt's a lawyer. She'll do it. She'll fast track half of it, or mum can fill that out. We're dealing with people whose parents don't speak great English. Do you know what I mean? Or maybe the kids are the ones that are providing for the household. So yeah, and I mean we have a 3-page application, and even I've had a few people coming to me and saying, look, this is quite challenging. Like, can you give me a bit of guidance? And yeah, I think they would just be overwhelmed and alienated by something like a Creative Scotland brief. It takes just a different level of intellect, and maybe a kind of naive level of intellect to have to decipher that. For if you really want people to get ahead, I think you need to make it easy for them and understand that some of these people are doing businesses because they did find that side of school challenging, and they didn't take well to academia, but maybe they're an amazing creative soul, or maybe they're a great force at what they do. But yeah, I think access to someone who has the knowledge to do something like that is few and far between, I guess, sometimes, especially in these communities.
Yeah, it certainly sounds that way. But in terms of the fund, and have you tried working with, I forgot, you just mentioned the government board that does it, but have they shown any signs of changing it at all?
Nope.
No?
No.
Okay.
No. Getting involved with people like that is just, they're just tied up in so much red tape. They're public owned. These are people that have no incentive to change. They sit back, they get paid, doesn't matter. Their jobs are pretty much guaranteed, no matter how many grants get given out or how few grants get given out. So yeah, I don't think they're under any inclination to change. I don't think they've ever shown any one. I mean, I've been in open conversations with Scottish Enterprise since maybe about 2015, since I kind of started getting serious with my business. I've been in various back and forth conversations, and it's very difficult. Like, you have to be VAT registered, you have to show 3 years of accounts. Like, I just think at that point you're probably past needing funding.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the grants that historically have been available haven't been great. It's something that I used to work with my clients to attain grants for them to spend with us. So that's like, and I used to work as a kind of, like I was saying, like a strategic based approach. Like, I would sit down and I would be the person that would go over their application and write their application for them and be like, okay, so we want to spend it here. This is what it's going to create. If we create your website and a SEO plan, we'll hopefully increase your turnover by 200% next year, which means you can employ an extra member of staff. But again, it's all, when it comes to public bodies, generally it's all very much geared towards, like, if we give you money, how many jobs are you going to make?
Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean, we've seen them, like, historically say things like, oh, we don't have any money, and then they turn around to a company like Made Brave and give them £300,000 and to create 30 jobs. And they create 30 jobs for 6 months, and then they make them all redundant, and then spend all the money on doing up their office. So
I guess in terms of like corporate responsibility, I guess it's quite challenging to hold someone accountable for the funding. But I hope that the Black Lives Matter movement, I hope that you also see that it is changing, and I hope that it continues to change. I hope the movement doesn't slow down at all, because the rate of change for it does seem quite rapid.
Oh yeah,
I get newsletters about supporting like Black businesses in Edinburgh alone, and it's just like, I think a lot of students are very turned on, and the younger generation wants to change.
Yeah. Oh, I think things have accelerated massively in the last 5 to 10 years. In fact, I think it's easy to take it for granted, but when I was at university, things like social justice, political issues were not at the forefront of anyone's conversation. Like, they were just not, like, no one would speak. If you were lucky, if Black History Month get brought up, you would never talk about people's pronouns, safe spaces, being gender inclusive, racial inclusive. I mean, I think even really the conversation around equality and like females in the industry is only kicked off in a large way in the last 6 years. From what I've seen working in clubs and working in the creative industries, that's when it's really started to drum up. So I think things have accelerated so fast, and I think they'll continue to do that. So I'm hoping that, although it seems like it's taken forever, like when I look back to when I was at university, the rate of how fast issues are coming up now and being dealt with, and people's receptiveness to learning and educating themselves, changing their mind, educating their family, it's leaps and bounds every year. So hopefully it's going to continue to improve.
Yeah. I just see you've got a couple of questions coming in, so it'd be great if we could like discuss a couple of them come through. So the first is from Tamara El Halawani, and she says, do you think that you were able to build more genuine and lasting relationships before social media came along, or has it helped maintain better relationships? And when people try to connect with you on social media, does this feel more superficial?
Really interesting one. I think I have a massive network on social media, but I definitely feel more connected to the people that I've met in real life, or have met in real life in the past, or continue to meet in real life. So I think if you are meeting someone on social media and you want to become part of their real network, I definitely think it's worth arranging a meeting. I'm a big advocate of like face to face, shaking hands. I think once you have that bond, it's very hard to break. There's just something very personable about it. So even sometimes like I talked to a lot of like potential clients and leads down in London. Last time I was down, I just arranged to meet a few. We just like called them up and said, "Oh, we're in a bar in Hackney. Like, do you want to come?" We didn't speak any business. We just like we were meant to kind of talk about branding and stuff. We just brought them in, got them smashed, like had a laugh for 3 or 4 hours. And I think honestly that was so much better than any kind of like work related Zoom call. I think like having that person to person time, I think people are very curated on social media. Everyone know that I am. Like people only see who I want them to see on social media.
Yeah.
And I think if you want to really be part of someone's network and form a proper bond with them, even if it is a business bond, I think you need that time in real life to see what they're really like, see how they react to things, because someone can write a nice polite reply to you if you really piss them off on social media, or they can be more brash and loud. I think in terms of feeling someone out as how they might be working in business with them, I think it is absolutely essential to kind of get a face-to-face. And that's not to say you can't have good digital connections and good online connections. I've got loads of internet friends that I talk to every day. I've got clients in the States, but the ones that I'm really tight with are the ones that I've met in real life.
Yeah, I think as well the fact that on social media you can kind of curate a whole personality who is very different, and I think you can learn probably more in the first 5 seconds of meeting someone in the flesh than you could ever learn for a couple hours on a Zoom call.
Yeah, exactly.
It goes right back to like even in the Black Lives Matter. I think the Blackout Tuesday was I think a lot of people kind of felt more of a responsibility to post rather than feeling like it was genuine because everyone was doing it.
Yeah.
There's more of a social like need to do it to be part of it, because otherwise you get kind of FOMO, I think, from your friends, and to go along with the trend rather than truly understand.
Oh yeah, that's it. I think people during that time really loved just like belonging to something and feeling like they were doing something, kind of like crowd mentality, like got really fired up and passionate about it. But then it was very easy when they put their phone down to just be like, okay, back to normal life, like put Netflix on and pretend all that stuff that happens on my phone doesn't exist anymore, whereas some people are living it and breathing it. So yeah, it's definitely different.
Yeah, I'd say to everyone who's watching now, if you want to come onto the camera and you want to ask a question on video, you're completely welcome. Just send a message in the chat, but keep sending in your questions. There's another one from Tamara, and she says, companies often include training on implicit bias and structural racism for their employees. How can this be taken forward to concrete action rather than just potentially performative?
It's a very difficult question. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, something like that, I think it would be really important to ask the Black employees or the minority employees in that company how they feel, and specifically what issues they're facing, what they find troubling, what they find problematic, if they think that there's anything that could be improved on, and then take that feedback and implement it. That's how I would say they could combat being performative, because training is one thing, but is it really creeping its way into the workplace? Is it being enforced? Are people taking it on board? I think it's very important to make sure that they don't just do this, like, again, like a box ticking, like, we have provided training on implicit bias, like, done. But is it still permeating your workplace culture? Are the people that are affected by these problems, do they still feel like they're affected by them? And that's something that we've seen at Nike. I know quite a few people at Nike, and during it all, they started up like a big board and like a black employee board. My friend just made kind of head of that, and they were like, obviously we do such great work and we just want to know if there's anything else. And she was like, nah, you guys are shit. Like, there's a lot that you guys need to do. And I think that they'd spent so long being like, okay, we do this great training and we've got this and we've got that, and they hadn't actually asked any of their employees, like, is there anything that we could be improving on? And when they did, the answer was a resounding yes.
Just provide the training, but whether the pickup rate is probably so small that it probably isn't even make any real difference. I think that's part of the problem. We had a talk from IBM on diversity and inclusion, and they were talking about they have a massive online platform for learning about diversity and inclusion and like business arguments behind it. But I think we couldn't really find out what the meaningful use of it was, and like how many people
like what is the takeaway from it? Like, what I think, like, you can lecture people about diversity all day, but realistically, are they going to change their behaviors? Probably not, if it's in such a broad sense. I think people need to be told, like, quite specifically, like, oh, you're doing this one thing that's wrong, or you're doing this one thing that's upsetting people, and it's these small adjustments all across the board that help, rather than just being like, I think everybody knows, like, don't be racist to people. Like, it's almost a disservice to everybody to say that they don't know that those basic things. So
in a lot of ways, it's very similar to just like starting an entrepreneurship. It's just, the only way to truly learn about it and create like a good diversity and inclusion campaign is just to get in, like, and continuously build on your feedback and continuously improve it, because it'll never be perfect. And it's just about improvement. We've got another question from Harrison. It says, May and June were huge months for the Black Lives Matter movement, but it seems that since we have definitely seen a slowdown in media and public responses to the racial issues at hand. Why do you think the slowdown has occurred, and what can we do to keep it a central topic of conversation?
I think that's just human nature, and definitely the nature of digital media these days. I think the fact that it lasted kind of over May, June, July was incredible. Like, everything now, news is so quickly digestible, everything is throwaway. If there's a massive scandal, it doesn't matter what it is, 2 months later, it's history. I think just making sure that we take the energy that we kind of gained and the momentum that we gained over the movement, and we turn it into direct action. Things like setting up the fund, things like creating organizations, things like asking our workplaces to be more mindful of things, looking at training, looking at diversity hiring, looking at these actual pledges and lasting things. The social media stuff was great, but it doesn't, it's great for awareness, but it's not social media that changes things, and it's not black squares that change things. I think that's something that, like, when you're younger and maybe people in university, that I've found quite difficult, is that it's quite performative, and that a lot of people feel like they're really doing so much by, like, oh, but I shared this and I posted this and I, like, done a Yas Queen, and I'm like, you didn't. What are you actually, like, what part of anyone's life are you making better by doing that? Like, what is the tangible end result? Because all the gas and air in the world and talking about things doesn't create anything. You have to at some point actually do something. And that's something that I've found particularly Glasgow and the Glasgow Art School is really, really bad for. There's a lot of, like, performative, like, we chat and we do all this and we talk about how inclusive we are, but then when you burrow down into it, it's really an inclusive school. People there have to deal with, like, racist lecturers, they have to deal with racist people in class not being dealt with properly, not being disciplined, their bloody head is like a turf. It's really difficult. So I think we just need to make sure that we take momentum and we hold people accountable for like promises they make. So if a company is promising to be more diverse, we need to follow up on that, or we need to look at how we can kind of take that momentum and turn it into change and create movements and actionable assets from it.
Yeah, it definitely has slowed down. I think everyone has been able to see the impact, and because I'm in London, it's definitely something you've seen. Like, I remember going to central London back in June time. I remember going via the Houses of Parliament in Westminster, and just every single statue was covered up with expensive scaffolding to protect it from being torn down. And everyone was scared that there was going to be like another protest and everything was going to be torn down. But now it's all gone, and it kind of seems to have settled. But I think it's important not to let people forget that the issues have still not been solved. There's been some action, but it's still just words at the moment, and the commitment does take years to uphold.
Yeah.
There's another question as well from Harrison saying, does the fund work with schools and universities to get direct access to high potential students? If not, do you have plans to do this in the future?
At the moment, no. We're not really looking at the moment to fund ideas. We really want to fund businesses and people that are running at the moment. I think maybe in the future we will look at mentoring people. For now, we're really looking for people who've kind of started their business themselves and have made some kind of routes to getting it running. We've found quite a lot of businesses like that. I'm a big believer that if you want to do something, you'll do it. So we would really hope that people who are applying for the grant will at least have made a shot of the business that they want to do. I just think that kind of stands us in the best stead again with the people who donated. I think money could run dry quite quickly if we were just giving people money to experiment or to come up with ideas. So really, the application is built so that we want to know how the money that we will give you will affect your business. So if you're a photographer, say, and you currently shoot food, and your portfolio could be expanded into interior lifestyles shots if you bought a 16mm lens, and you could then shoot interiors, which means you could double your client base, which means you could turn over twice as much. That's the kind of what we're looking for at the moment. So as a business fund, it's not really like an ideas or startup fund. I think it would take a lot more mentoring and a lot more time, and I would want to give it a lot more time and investment if we were working with kind of nurturing people who just had ideas at the moment. But that's something we can maybe look at in the future. But I think for now, we just want to make as big an impact as we can, and I think that's worth kind of empowering and helping people who are on that journey already.
Yeah, and because it's also because it's quite a small fund, it's so new, it's still in its infincy. Like, it sounds
like
exactly.
I think to start a business as well, like it takes a long time. I mean, 500 quid goes like that when you start a business. So, and it's a lot of time. It's 6-7 months. We would really like to be able to say to people like, okay, well, here's your fund, and a month later they've actioned that. You know what I mean? So, rather than like, okay, here's your fund, and 2 years down the line, we're like, oh yeah, finally got that thing up and running.
There's another question from Eleanor, and she says, would you recommend focusing on creating organizations that fill these gaps that the government are lacking, or in lobbying the government to do better?
That's a really difficult one. It's the government's responsibility, but I have absolutely no faith that a Tory government has any want to fund impoverished Black kids to create amazing businesses. I just can't imagine them sitting around the table and thinking, that's what we want to get behind. So I feel like there is a bit of personal responsibility at the moment to be doing that. But I think in the long run, we do need to be putting more pressure on either the government or local councils and local authorities. Because for a while there was some great like Glasgow City Council grants and grants for kind of property. There was a website grant for like £1,000 that ran for a while. Scottish Enterprise do a few grants like the Digital by Design grant and the Route to Market grant. So I think we should really be opening up a conversation with those bodies about how they could kind of make these things more accessible to people of colour. Because I think that's the problem right now, is that even though those grants exist, they're so alienating in the worlds that they exist in are so alienating that people from those communities don't even think about reaching out to them, because they just look and think, oh God, well, I don't look like that. I'm not starting a bank, or I'm not in fintech. So yeah, I think
I think
that's maybe a good.
Over time, we'll see whether the funds, like such as your own, will continue to fill that niche, or whether the government will kind of step in to help and parallel it. And I hope that they do, because it is a responsibility. And even now, I'm just sure with all the small businesses, it's even more important now to support the small businesses with the funds such as yourself. Do you want to expand it beyond Scotland at some point, or is it still something you want?
No, I think I've only really want to focus on Scotland. I think it's something that's really essential here, and I feel like Scottish business is slept on a lot in general, and it's something that I want to continue to work on and empower. I'm a big believer in, like, one of our mission statements is just to put like Glasgow and Scotland on like the cultural map of the world. I think it's an amazing place with so much diversity and so much talent and so much life. I just want to showcase it as best I can. So I would love, and if in 3 or 4 years I had a portfolio of 400 businesses that we'd helped with the grant, and we could take that and showcase it to the world and say, well, look what we're doing.
Yeah, I guess it's really important as well to keep it Scottish, because the UK government, of all places, I doubt that they'd invest in a black fund in Glasgow, of all places. Be focusing on the London, the capital.
Hear the laugh in my head already.
Yeah. We got another question from Jasmine. She says, in your opinion, what is the difference between being a non-racist and being an anti-racist? Do you reckon sometimes these terms are used in the wrong context?
Yeah. I mean, I guess that was a pretty huge difference. I would like to think nearly everybody is non-racist. I would like to think maybe the last few months have shown that to be not as true. But yeah, I think widely most people are not racist. I would like to think they are, but I think being anti-racist is quite different. I think being actively out there to change the landscape, actively out there to help make life easier for people of colour, for minority communities. But I don't think that's something that we can expect everybody to do as well. I think it's easy to get carried away within our own communities and think like, oh, everybody should be doing all the things all the time. Everyone has their own agendas, and I'd hope that everyone is kind of picking areas in their life where they are trying to make strides to make the world better, whether it's kind of homelessness or LGBTQ or racism. So yeah, I don't know about them being used in the wrong context. I don't know if I've come across many times where they've been used in the wrong context, but yeah, I think there's a massive gaping I
think it's a big difference between this. And I think non-racist is kind of, I think, what you kind of expect from almost everyone who's in.
That's the minimum. That's really like the minimum. Like that is, if you're not, if you're not that, you're like not a good person. I think people sometimes, I guess maybe in the wrong context is that sometimes people give themselves a pat on the back for being non-racist, and I'm like, congratulations, you're being a decent human. That is like the least of what is expected of you.
Yeah, I think anti-racism as well is just it's such a hard label to define, I think, as well, just because what does that even mean? Because what is the difference of I think people misconvene like anti-racist as just, I called out someone for being racist. And I think that's an important step, but I don't think, that's not even
it should be an anti-racist one time. That's you not being you like act like you're an activist, or you're like constantly active in that scene. Yeah, I think there's a lot to unpick there.
Yeah, the gold standard I think is quite far away, and I think even these terms, they don't come close to anyone. Keep sending in your questions, everyone. It's just been, I think this is just this remarks between the anti-racists. I think probably the biggest thing which I'm seeing now is that it's just kind of conversation of like what is enough and what isn't enough. I think that's what you expect. Yeah. That's what the conversation revolves around university students, is what more people can be doing even now. I think education, people think of that as like becoming more educated is like the first step, and then there's so many steps that come after that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in education, that's probably one place where they need to kind of focus that in. Especially we're seeing quite a lot of racism creeping into the education system. Or not creeping in, I guess it's always been there, and I guess over time it's getting better. But like you're saying, things are accelerating quickly, and I think we need to open that conversation up to institutions like that being more openly anti-racist and being very, very against it, being very hard line on what's acceptable and what isn't, and opening up programs and accessibility programs for people of those communities to come into them and to make sure that they're protected and that they have a good experience when they do come into them.
Yeah, I mean, even in higher education, there's a recent study which I saw, which is about of 20,000 university lecturers in the UK. I think only 30 were Black women. I think maybe about 70 were Black men. And even though you could probably say, oh, but it's not racist, you know, like it is, it may not be discriminatory, like in like, there might be
Yeah,
it's
it's non-racist, but it's not anti-racist, and that it's not creating jobs. It's not specifically going out and finding people for those roles who are from those backgrounds. And I think initiatives like that would actually actively open the higher education system up to people from those communities, because it is quite daunting to go to any institution where people don't look like you, don't talk like you, don't sound like you. So I think anything that we could do to kind of actively increase diversity there would hopefully filter down into the people who are applying.
I think it's the problem as well, which I think even the medical school in Edinburgh, I recently have just joined the board of like the Equalities and Anti-Racism Committee. And even there, they're trying to consider what best approach to take. And they said, well, we could support, like it's all about support. I think that's the point they want to do now. They want to try to support the people that are from these communities in Edinburgh. And I just thought it kind of seems contradictory to provide the support, but then not have any lecturers, because I've never had a Black lecturer in my time at medical school after 3 years of training. And so it kind of feels like you can support people, but there has to be a role model. Like otherwise, you see the ceiling, even though you're being told there isn't one. You can
absolutely.
Angle.
I think visibility is a massive issue in Scotland, especially because we are dealing with like first and sometimes second generation communities. There aren't a lot of those people, and there aren't a lot of those people to look up to. And in your kind of formative years, I guess you make decisions about where you want to be and who you want to be and what you want to do in your future based on people that are around you or influences that you have on you. And if you never see someone that looks like you doing a job that you want to do, you maybe do kind of write it off as not being viable. So that's something we're kind of working on as well. And in talks with a kind of digital developer who works across the road at Spectre agency called Nana. So he's the only other kind of senior employee in a digital marketing development company in Scotland. So I'm the only Black creative director in Scotland, and he's the only Black CTO. So we're hoping to kind of start a program where we go out to schools and talk to children that are kind of in their kind of early years, maybe at the years where they're picking their subjects or when they're doing their hires, just to like kind of set up a program where we bring in along like a Black architect, a Black developer, a Black designer, and just put them in front of them, because in their early years, I think a lot of people from minority communities are told what they're going to be. Like when I was young, everyone was just like, not from my family, but people like me, older white people would be like, oh my God, you're going to be a footballer. Like you're so athletic. You're going to be a runner. You're going to do music. You're going to be a rapper. I bet you can dance. And like, I think they hear that a lot, but they don't often hear like, oh, you could be an architect, or you could be. And then I think the first generation parents are so laser focused on their kids having a good future that the kids are always told, like, you need to be a lawyer, you need to be a doctor, you need to be in finance. The same as the Southeast Asian community and the Chinese community, that they're often always pushed into these job roles, and it's only because they're never shown people who look like them in other job roles. They're never told like, oh yeah, you can actually be like a web developer, you could be in fintech, you could be a CTO, you could be a designer. So they don't think it's viable. So I think visibility is a massive thing that we need to tackle, and it's probably, to be honest, it's probably a generation away, because I don't think we have the people there to pull all the talent into to kind of show it in an authentic way. But hopefully over the next couple of years or next generation, as these kids come up and they disperse and they get into higher management roles, then that'll kind of start to bleed out then.
I mean, did you feel like you had, throughout all your education, maybe even higher education and beyond in graduate schemes as a graduate, like, did you feel like you had anyone really to look up to? Or did you ever have anyone which was kind of the goal up there? No one?
No, absolutely not. No. No.
How much do you think? Do you think that would have?
A lot, yeah. And I think I got maybe even not that, but I got a lot of like, oh my god, you're black and you want to be a designer, or you're black and you want to do graphic design, or you're black and you want to do game arts. That's so interesting. And like, I think not dealing with all of that would have been a lot easier. Not kind of having that niggling doubt, like, oh, am I meant to be here? Am I meant to be doing this? I think that would have taken a lot of pressure off. It didn't affect me that much, but I'm sure there's other people that would hear those same things and just be like, okay, right, shit, maybe this isn't for me. I guess I'll do something that's more in my lane. And I think it's those kind of, again, those stereotypes that kind of, it works their way all the way up to like, even now when I'm working and people expect me to be doing certain types of work, or they expect me to listen to certain types of music. So I think it's one of those things across the board where, we need to blur those lines a little bit more and stop putting people in boxes of what they should and shouldn't do.
Pigeonholing, I think, is definitely very important. I think the Black community is definitely a victim of, I read a paper that was about like racial triangulation. If you're not aware of it, it's just the theory of Black is one of the most like racially like secluded, and then Asian is like next down, and then white is obviously the most privileged, but then Asian people somehow have this stereotype of being smarter, and Black is somehow have the stereotype of not being as smart, and it's just such a weird concept that we are probably a generation away, a generation too soon from seeing. But I just see we're about 5 minutes away from the close now. I want to know whether you had any final remarks, and I guess I had one question just about, you haven't really said if you had any. You said you've never had any explicit discrimination yourself. But you probably knew
work only in business. I've never had any explicit discrimination in business.
That is an important caveat, which I should have added in. Apologies. But you come from Glasgow, like a white dominated place, of course. But in terms of other entrepreneurs, like your peers, did you always feel supported by what I'm assuming was a majority of white peers around you, like through like your journey through entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think
graphical design.
Absolutely. No, do you know, I actually can't give them enough props. I think the people that have been in my corner through my whole career, like, couldn't have fought harder for me. Like my office manager, Molly, who was like a client of mine before this, like, just championed me as much as anyone I could ask anyone to. Like the guys that work with me, who are all like partners in the business, are incredible. Like, yeah, I've received amazing support all the way through my journey. I can't say that that's going to be the same for everyone. I think I've probably been very lucky in the people that I've met and the things that I've done, and I think maybe sometimes that might have been opportunistic support because people could see where the kind of trajectory of where we were going. But yeah, no, I think I've been really lucky in that I've had amazing support, and I think reaching out to people, I've always had an amazing kind of experience. There's very few times that I've reached out to someone for help or mentorship or even to ask a question or another agency, and I've almost never had someone come back and be like, nah, I don't have time for that, or no, I can't do that. So that's like my biggest piece of advice that I give to any entrepreneur, anyone in the start of their business journey or that wants to start an idea, is that just like reach out to people that are doing it already. I know, like, if people message me, I'll try and take the time if I can to message them and talk to them. I'll try as hard as I can to answer any questions. I got asked a lot about like shadowing, but that's something that's really difficult. But if I felt like I could take on interns, I would. Like, so yeah, I think people are really willing to help and support, and I think that's maybe something that's quite unique to Scotland. I think we're really genuinely happy people that want to help people. I think we're a supportive country, whereas I think maybe in London you would find that a bit more difficult. People might be more standoffish and I don't have time for this, I don't have time for that. So I think my support network here has been great, and I think that should be a kind of key focus for any entrepreneur or anyone coming up in their business journey, is to expand their support network of like peers like them and people who can mentor them and perhaps just answer some questions. I think if you ask almost anybody within reach, to even just if you can chat to them on the phone for 10 minutes, they'll probably do it.
Yeah.
I don't think enough people take advantage of that.
I think that like the whole pandemic, it's definitely shown like it's so easy to reach out to people. There's not really a reason not to do it anymore.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
There's so much camaraderie here.
Yeah. I should say a big thank you for taking the time to speak to us today. It's been very insightful.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah, I say a big thank you for everyone for coming. Yeah, and I just very much looking forward to hopefully speaking to you again in the future. Okay.
Thanks.